Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Sunday Night Football Overtime. Seahawks, Rams, NFC West, family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, that's family business. And I love this family business right here. This goes all the way back to 2012 family business. When Russell Wilson first came into the league, the one team that always gave him problems, ever since he stepped foot in this league, was the Los Angeles Rams. Well, they were the St. Louis Rams then, but he's always had issues with this team. Now, he's won his fair share versus these Rams, but the games are usually always close, and they usually get after his ass. They've always had enough team speed to bottle him up, frustrate him, and give him issues, which is why I thought the Rams could win this football game. I did not expect them to win it this convincingly, but I did expect them to win this football game. Now, I've said this for pretty much the last month or so, that the Rams weren't good enough to play in the postseason, that the six teams that belong in the postseason are probably the six that are in right now. But I've already said this as well in the same breath. I don't believe in the Minnesota Vikings. Now, if you're going to tell me the Rams that I saw for much of this game, primarily the first half offensively and all of the game defensively, if you're going to tell me that's the Rams team I'm going to get, then they're one of the best six teams in the NFC. I would take the Minnesota Vikings out and insert the Los Angeles Rams. You can't assure me of that, though. That's the problem. They're not going to play Seattle every single week, okay? I don't know what Rams team is going to show up. Now, maybe they get hot down the stretch. That's 3 wins in a row for them. And maybe they start to play the kind of football that lends itself to them making a run at it and potentially sneaking in the back door as a wild card in the NFC East, the NFC conference. But as of right now, to me, I still need to see more. Now, this is what I've been clamoring for from the Rams all season long. And to be honest with you, that first half of this game looked like the Rams we've seen in the past with Sean McVay as their head coach. Now, where has that gone? I don't know. Remember what I told you guys probably about a month ago when they got ran by the Ravens and everyone says, oh, the league finally caught up with Sean McVay. I'm like, I don't necessarily think the league caught up with McVay as much as McVay doesn't have the confidence that he once did in several players, offensive line-wise, Todd Gurley-wise, and even Jared Goff-wise to a degree. And I said, he's not calling the plays the way that he did last season and the year before that. There isn't that confidence. There aren't the pre-shifts, motions, and the fast tempo to the line, snap the football. We saw all of those things. We saw the jet sweeps. Where have they been this season? All right? Where have the pre-snap shifts been? We saw that tonight. Where have the let's get up to the ball quickly, snap it before they get set? That was a staple. These were all things that the Rams, when they're at their best offensively, these things are a given. You're going to get these. You know you're going to get them, but you don't know how to prepare for them because you don't know when you're going to get them. We got all of those things tonight. And they were offensively as sharp as we've seen them all season long. 21 points in the first half. They were dominant. And then came the second half. And they kind of went back into that shell. They had some turnovers, Goff with 2 interceptions, 1 to the crib. I thought that was going to allow the Seahawks to make this the kind of game that we've come accustomed to seeing between these two. I thought that was the beginning of what was going to be like a 17-point run by the Seahawks. They were going to cut this thing to 21-20, and all of a sudden we were going to have a ball game. I was wrong, and that's where the defense steps in, and I'll talk about them here in a second because if the defense continues to play the way that they played tonight, which again, you can't be assured of because as they showed the graphic tonight, that's the problem I have with this defense as well, is that they've got 6 games where they've held opponents, now 7 games this season where they've held opponents to under 13 points or less. And then you've got 2 45-plus point games this season, which is just asinine. So you don't know which one. Now, if I'm not mistaken, one came prior to Ramsey, one came post-Ramsey. So, again, The first one came with the Tampa Bay game. That was prior to Ramsey. The second one came against Lamar Jackson on a Monday night about a month ago. So we've seen it with Ramsey, without Ramsey. So you're just not sure what you're going to get. Now, that was a buzzsaw. That Baltimore Ravens team that they ran into that Monday night was a buzzsaw. Not everybody would have got a 40 burger put on their skull, but most teams would have gotten a 40 burger. And I think the Rams got a 50 burger that night. It was brutal. But anyway, this offense needs to play the way that they're accustomed to playing, needs to play the way that they have to play to survive and thrive. That's the way we saw them play in the first half of this game. Gerald Everett in this game. Tyler Higbee steps up, 7 catches, 116 yards in this game. I've always said the perfect fit for this offense is Robert Woods. When they got him, I didn't know what to expect. I told anybody that would listen, hey, Robert Woods is a really good football player. I liked him in Buffalo. I don't like him in Los Angeles. I love him in Los Angeles. The guy makes plays, just goes about his business, Ullman-like. He's tough, makes the tough catch. You saw the shot he took on that beautiful throw by Goff across his body on that bootleg. Takes a shot. Should have been helmet to helmet, 15-yard contact. They didn't throw it, but he caught it anyway. Doesn't matter. Like, he does the little things, the dirty work for this offense. And when he's clicking, I think more so than any of the other receivers. Yep, Cooper Kupp makes the big plays and this, that, and the third. Love what he does too. Brandon Cooks, hit or miss with him. He was a non-factor tonight. He's a guy that has had issues with concussions and different things. Hasn't been in the lineup for much of this season. But when he's going, he stretches the field vertically, gives them a different dimension and dynamic that he adds to the offense. But for me, the guy that actually makes this offense go is Robert Woods. When he's in the lineup and he's right, this is a tough offense to stop. But again, the guy that makes all of this go, however, is Todd Gurley. 23 carries a night. The yards weren't there. He hasn't had a 100-yard performance this season, which blows your mind. It boggles the mind to think that Todd Gurley, a back of his caliber, hasn't had a 100-yard rushing effort today or this season. But the carries were there. This wasn't one of those 14-carry, 62-yard Todd Gurley efforts. Those aren't what the Rams are built off of, because everything the Rams do offensively is built off of the run, because they need to go play action fake. That's how everything works in this offense. It works through the run game. They have to run it. Even if it's not about the amount of yardage, it's about the attempts. They have to run the football to set up everything else they want to do. And so they have to use Todd Gurley. They have to use the run game. They did that tonight. Again, the yardage wasn't there, but the offense looked the way that it's supposed to look, and it's looked the way that it's designed to look tonight, at least for the first half. So that was encouraging for me. Again, I need to see more of this to be convinced that they deserve to be one of the 6 teams in the NFC to go to the playoffs. But if they look like they did first half offensively and the entire 4 quarters defensively, they're better than the Minnesota Vikings. They would deserve to be that 6th and final playoff team. But as I mentioned before, and I said this on my podcast, the Los Angeles Rams will have a huge say in who wins the NFC West when it's all said and done. They impacted that division tonight by taking down the Seattle Seahawks. Now the 49ers are back in sole possession of first place, and they got these same 49ers that I just referenced in 2 weeks. And so they're going to have a say-so in who wins that division. They did some work tonight. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks when they see the San Francisco 49ers. That was a hell of a performance by the Los Angeles Rams, and a statement that they're not going to go quietly into the night. If the Minnesota Vikings want to win that 6th and final playoff berth, or the Green Bay Packers, because don't count the Minnesota Vikings out of their divisional race. Whomever doesn't win the NFC North, if you want in the postseason, you better keep winning football games. It's as simple as that. The Rams are not going to go quietly into the night. That's how this is going to go. So they're going to put up a fight. They got the spiraling out of control Dallas Cowboys next week. Then they follow that up with a game versus the San Francisco 49ers. And then they finish up with the Arizona Cardinals. They've got a legitimate shot to run the table. And if they do that, that puts them at 11-5. And all of a sudden, the pressure's on whomever does not win the NFC North division. So don't look now, but the Los Angeles Rams are getting their act together. And if they continue to play this brand of football, speaking of which, that defense, ever since they got Jalen Ramsey, and a lot of you questioned the move, and I told you I was going to take a wait-and-see approach. I said, look, I will never shoot down a team for going for it, all right? There's a lot of scared teams in this league, man, that have a chance if they would just go for it. There's a lot of teams real scared, man, and I've always said, you know my mantra, you know my motto, scared money don't make money, man. You know the rules to the game, then play. So I'll never kill a team for saying, you know what? I got a Super Bowl team here in front of me. I just need this one piece. Let me go and get it. I talked about that during the trade deadline. I said, man, there's a lot of players out here available. A lot of teams are right there on the cusp. Go get you some. And a lot of teams looked and said, man, that's pretty enticing, but I'm scared. And look, if you scared, say you scared. The Rams said, we not scared, man. I might not have a first-round pick again, but I ain't scared to push my chips into the center of the table. I did it last year. I got all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm going to do it again this year. They may not make it. They may not even make the postseason. But I can't fault them for taking that chance. And the thing about what they did is they're going to re-sign Jalen Ramsey. He's not going anywhere. It's not like they got a rental. All right, they traded away Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib to free up the cap space so they can sign this man long term. So they're going to keep him in L.A., and that's going to allow them to do what they've done really over this stretch, minus the game versus the Baltimore Ravens, which is lock teams up man-to-man and be able to come after you and pressure the opposition if need be. Really, Wade Phillips doesn't want to blitz. You know, he would like to just rush forward. And really what the challenge is to the other guys not named Aaron Donald. Never, ever trust a man with two first names. The challenge is to them because Aaron's going to do his job. He's either going to beat one-on-one. He's either going to beat his one-on-one matchup and get to the quarterback or apply pressure, or he's going to command a double team. Either way, he's doing his job. Now, everybody else has got one-on-one. Do your job and win. Somebody else has got to win. That guy tonight was Dante Fowler Jr. And I've always said DFJ for me is a guy that has to win consistently. And when he plays the way that he played tonight, they're tough to stop on defense because now you got two guys that can get to the quarterback. And now they don't have to blitz, so they can play coverage behind that. They can play some man. They can have a guy spying over the middle of the field, be a robber. They can do a lot of creative things, and Wade can get diabolical then. If he feels like blitzing on a particular down, he can. If he wants to play some zone, he can. But if he wants to just say, you know what, I'm going to man up on the outsides and dare you to do something, he can do that too. And so it's a beautiful feeling when you can get home with 4 and have a guy on one side of the field that you trust that can lock it down. And that's what Ramsey has brought to this defense. Remember, one of the biggest issues they had in that secondary is that Marcus Peters took too many risks. And so that out and up that Jalen Ramsey got beat on tonight on the third down by DK Metcalf, earlier in the season, that's a touchdown. That's a touchdown. He didn't get back in that play. He didn't have the speed to get back in that play. He gets nosy and greedy, and he bites on the out. He bites on that out, and then that receiver takes it up. With the kind of speed that DK has, that's a touchdown. All right? But Jalen Ramsey can bite as he did down on that out, then recover, get back to the up, and still push him out of bounds, which is what he did on that play. So there's a difference on this defense, and it's Jalen Ramsey. And what he's brought to this defense is stability in the back end because they didn't have that earlier in the season. They were getting torched. If you had a big name wide receiver, you could get all in their ass early in the season. Michael Thomas got in their ass earlier this season. Mikey got in their ass earlier this season when Tampa Bay racked up 50-some-odd points. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If you had a big play wide receiver, they had fun with this Rams defense earlier this year. Since Ramsey has come over, not a lot of guys have been able to amass major numbers. Starting with his first game versus the Falcons, nobody's really went off. Now, that was a total team collapse versus Baltimore, but outside of that, they've done a pretty damn good job of holding down receivers since Ramsey has gotten there, and it's really helped them be able to shore up things in other areas of that defense. And so now I think they're a more consistent unit, but again, much like the offense, they can be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and you just don't know which one you're going to get. If they show me consistent ball down the stretch, that's 3 weeks consistently of them shutting down NFL offenses. This was the best one they had seen in that 3-week stretch, because the two teams previous to this, the Bears and the Cardinals, not teams and offenses that strike fear into your heart. This was the first time you said, all right, show me what you really about in this little stretch. And they showed up big tonight. Can they do that again next week against another high-powered offense? Look, they may be struggling. Say what you want about Dallas. They may be struggling, but they can do it with the best of them offensively. Their defense stinks. Now, but their offense can move the football. They may not score points all the damn time, but their offense can move the football with anybody in this league at will. So we'll see if they can do it again next week. As for the Seahawks, they were due for a letdown. They were. And that's why I'm not even tripping over this, because this is family business, and you know how the family do it. Everybody in the family knows you more so than anybody else in the league. So you're good for one of these against a family member, especially one that you've always had issues with in the past. All right, the game earlier in the season easily could have been a loss at the crib if Greg Zuerlein is able to bang home that field goal at the very end of that game. I talked about that on the podcast. So this is not a surprise to me. Again, I didn't anticipate them being dominated the way that they did, but I thought they could lose this football game, and it's okay. They're fine. All right, they'll bounce back. They go to Carolina next week. They'll take care of business. They're okay. Like I said before, this is a team that I look at them and I feel like they've got everything they need to make a deep run in the postseason, but I don't trust their defense. I said this last Monday when they beat Minnesota. I said, look, this is a really good Seahawks team that is really being carried by Russell Wilson in his MVP campaign and a really sturdy run game. But, there's that but. This defense scares me because the secondary isn't good enough to lock down other teams with the pass rush that they have. They don't get after the quarterback. That's why the game against San Francisco on that Monday night was so surprising, because they harassed the hell out of Jimmy Garoppolo in that game. I didn't see it coming. Why? Because they don't get after the quarterback very often. If it's not Jadeveon Clowney, they're not getting home. And it makes it even worse when you take Ziggy Ansah out of the picture. Don't know how long he's going to be out for, but they already struggled before his injury. You take him out of the mix. Now there's really nobody except for Clowney to get after the quarterback. So this is a team that struggles to get to the passer. And because of that, you're leaving a secondary that is very young, out to dry in the back end. And really, that's the weakness of this football team right now, is their inability to stop the pass because they can't get to the quarterback. And you're asking them to play coverage and man-to-man on the back end, and they're not capable of doing that on a consistent basis. And you saw it again tonight in that first half. They got their asses whooped, picked apart by Jared Goff and this Rams offense. They had whatever they wanted between Higbee and Woods. There was no answer for this offense. They quick snapped them. They got up to the line, caught them in disarray. They got them on play action fake. Guys were running open. The Rams max protect, only had 3 guys out on the route, 2 guys out on the route at times, still wide ass open in zone coverage. They did what they wanted to do tonight in that first half, and that's why the Seahawks are a question mark come postseason time. Because if you've got an offense that can score, you can put pressure on the Seattle Seahawks. And as you saw tonight, they're not good when they have to come from behind. It was funny. I was at Top Golf yesterday with my homeboys, and we were playing shuffleboard. Man, I love shuffleboard. It's a lot of fun. And so one of my homeboys, me and him, we go at it. It's 3 of us. The other one's not he's good. He's just not as good as us. All right. So we usually take advantage of him. So let's just use the NFC West, since we're talking NFC West. Let's use that analogy. I'm the Seattle Seahawks, or I'm the San Francisco 49ers. My other friend is the Seattle Seahawks. And the one that is, he's all right. He's the Rams. Okay. So we make fun of the one that's really good, just like I am, because he has to play with a lead. He has to be up front in the game. He has to have a lead so that he can nickel and dime you. He doesn't want to get into a shootout with you in shuffleboard because he can't keep pace. You take him out of his element. You start asking him to do some things he's not comfortable doing. You're asking him to have to score now. He's not able to just get a one and set up another one and then play a little bit of defense. Now you're asking him to go get points. He's not comfortable doing that. Me, I can run and gun. If I got to go play a little defense, I can. I'm comfortable in any environment, but he's not. And that's the Seattle Seahawks. They're not comfortable down 13, having to drop back and pass. That's not how they are set up to win. We saw it on Monday night. They got out into a lead in front of Minnesota, and they were able to run the football, and they ran it to the tune of 229 yards on the Minnesota Vikings. That's what they want to do. They want to get a lead, and then they want to run the football and run it down your throat. You give them that opportunity, and they will take advantage. They've done it a lot this season to the tune of 10-3. But if you are able to get out in front of them like New Orleans did earlier in the season, like the Rams did tonight, you can beat the Seattle Seahawks. And so you got to take advantage of them early in the game, though. You got to get on top of them, make them uncomfortable, take them out of their element, and then see if they can keep pace. They couldn't do it tonight. And that's why I worry about them. That's why I worry about Seattle, because they're a team that needs the lead. They're a team that defensively can be scored upon. So you put those two things together. If an offense can score on Seattle, jump out to a lead, now they're out of their element. They can't run it the way that they want to. Can they function as an offense? Can they function as a team? It kind of goes hand in hand. So I worry about them come playoff time. But we'll see. They're still a good football team. I'm not going to overreact to what happened tonight because this is family business. And I know that they have issues with the Rams. The one team that gives them fits has always been the Rams in this division. It happened again tonight. I am not surprised at all. Now, we'll see if San Francisco slips up, gives them a chance to outright win this division in Week 17, or if they'll have to win the game in Week 17 to win the division with the season sweep. So we'll see what happens, how it all shakes out. But I surmise that we'll get to Week 17 and the division will be on the line. I don't see Seattle losing again until Week 17 if they are to lose again this season. But if they just take care of business down the stretch, they win the division. So we'll see what happens. So now they're 10-3. Rams are now 8-5. And we got ourselves a nice old-fashioned race down the stretch for not only the NFC West division, but also in the wild card. As like I said, I don't think anyone else has a chance. You know, when they show the in the hunt category, there should just be the Rams, and that's it. Nobody else, to me, is in the discussion. Obviously, they got to put the Eagles in there because they're in a divisional race with the Cowboys. But for the wild card, there's just one team, and that's the Rams, and that's it. So anyway, let's get to your comments and see what you guys have to say about what took place tonight and, you know, overall in the NFC conference. Gregory Lightbody says, no way the Cowboys beat this Rams team. If they played the way they played tonight, you're absolutely right. If they play the inconsistent brand of football we've seen all season long, then the Cowboys will definitely have a shot. Reese says, the Rams seem reinvigorated after some hard times. Like I said, the one thing I don't worry about with the Rams is them going into a shell because they are coached by Sean McVay and he won't allow it. Remember I talked about teams facing adversity and how you need adversity to really see what kind of a team you have. And more importantly, you need adversity to see what kind of a head coach you have. I think the Bears figured out they got a really good coach in Matt Nagy. I didn't like how he handled the adversity initially, but they could have spiraled out of control, could the Bears have. All right. But just like after they lost to the Rams, their season could have went to hell in a handbasket. Instead, they won 3 in a row, and all of a sudden, they're back in the mix themselves. I don't give them a chance in hell of making the postseason. As I just mentioned, the Rams are the only team that I think has a shot. But the Bears at 7-6, they're not dead. They're not dead. So And the same thing can be said for the Rams. I already knew who Sean McVay was. So I didn't need to see it. I didn't know what Matt Nagy had in terms of his intestinal fortitude. It was being tested. I didn't like what I saw initially, but he came through the other side and he brought his team with him. So I know that he can handle a little bit of adversity now. McVay already knew what he was built about, and I knew what he was built and made of. So I knew he was going to pull his team through this, a little bit of adversity. He was going to pull them through. Now, is it going to be enough to get them to the postseason? We'll see. But they're not going to finish up the season at 8-8. They're not going to finish the season at 7-9, which is what we thought was very possible just 3 weeks ago. But he pulled them through. They're 8-5, and now he's got them trending in the right direction. Niners fan says, what a game today. Jimmy G to Kittle connection is special. How about Jimmy G proving the haters wrong today? You know how I feel about Jimmy G. So me and you have been talking about Jimmy G and his ability. I told you Jimmy G has elite traits. And I said his ceiling is through the roof. I don't know if he'll ever reach it, but it's there. He doesn't have a ceiling on what he can be in this league like some people tried to cap him at. I said Jimmy G, if he can stay healthy and just continue to grow in Kyle Shanahan's offense, because we all know what Kyle is all about. You know, Kyle is one of the best to do it in the business. So if Jimmy G just is able to stay healthy and mature in that offense, and one of the best things that ever happened to the 49ers, speaking of me talking about teams going for it, was the 49ers saying, hey, we need a receiver, and going out and getting E-Man saying, if you're going to go for it, go for it. Don't be scared. Scared money don't make money. Give up a draft pick to go and get a Super Bowl. They're so hard to get. The 49ers did that, and they may actually benefit and go get them one this season. We'll see what happens. Anyway, what up, Likely Phenomenon? Big Blue Rising says, Lou, I think Sean McVay watched how Stella got a groove back. LOL, the Rams looking like themselves again. I told you McVay was going to figure it out. I sat here and deflected. Like a Kung Fu master. I was over here deflecting all the Sean McVay hate that was coming his way after some ass whoopings. And they took a couple on the chin this year. All right. But I said, I know who Sean McVay is as a coach. And I told you after, and this is what I love about McVay. Whether they win by 20 or they get their asses whooped by 30, he's going to show up at the podium and he's going to say, hey, we're going to come back to work tomorrow. We're going to be better. We're going to figure out what went wrong. We're going to figure out what we did right. We're going to improve upon both, and we're going to be a better football team because of it. You know what you're getting from Sean every week. He's a much more jovial version of Bill Belichick, but he's cerebral, okay? Similar to Bill Belichick, he's cerebral. He's just going to do it in a much happier tone. That's it. But he's just as cerebral. He's just as dialed in, and he's just as even keeled as a Bill Belichick. And that's why I love Sean. Niners fan says, I was conflicted about who to root for in this game. We're the number one seed after the Seahawks lost, but now we have to face a red-hot Rams team in a few weeks. You needed them to do your dirty work. There was no debating on who you should have been rooting for. You needed to get, because now you're one Seahawks slip-up away. If you take care of business, you're one Seahawks slip-up away from week 17 not being from the division if you take care of business. All you need is one slip-up from them. Whether it's in Carolina or somewhere else down the road, you just need one slip-up from them. And you can have this division all to yourself. So you had no doubt you should have been rooting for Seattle. Niners fan says, damn, Lou, I was listening to your podcast. So you got a bunch of your picks. Man, I got my ass whooped today. I was so frustrated because the Buccaneers game, my shit fell apart on me. Almost fell apart. Way worse than what it could have been. Because if the 49ers didn't pull it out and the Dolphins or the Jets didn't pull it out, it could have went really south for me. But I was disappointed in the Colts because they had ample opportunities to take care of business versus the Bucs, and they didn't. So that was one that didn't go my way that I was expecting to get. I thought Cincinnati could have won the game, and they had their opportunities, but they're a bad team. And anytime you're banking on bad teams to get you wins, that's what happens. Similar to the Raiders, I was thinking that I just kept, and I said this on my podcast. I said, I'm really disrespecting the Titans right now because I don't like the Titans. But they got it done. So, and I didn't know Josh Jacobs wasn't going to play. That's been my problem this season. And That's why I was disappointed, with some of the losses that I've had because I just didn't know. I didn't know his shoulder was that bad, and I didn't know he wasn't going to play because I knew that the Raiders could run on the Titans, and if they could control the clock, they would have a shot. I didn't expect them to be giving up 91-yard bombs and fumbles for scooping scores and that kind of bullshit, but got that one wrong. Got the Patriots game wrong. I mean, look, can you fault me for picking the Patriots? I knew that they were capable of losing this game. I just thought their defense would step up and play better, and they didn't. I thought the Chiefs really did what they wanted to do, and they just failed to score some points in some situations, had some turnovers and things of that nature. But I thought they dominated the Patriots defensively in this game. And that offense, they're in trouble. The Patriots are in trouble. I've been saying, just hold on, wait a minute. They'll figure it out. They're in trouble now. Okay, I'm full out panic mode now with the New England Patriots. And there was one more loss in it, Jacksonville. They quit on their coach. They quit on Doug Marrone today. They officially started backing up the U-Haul truck. Man, they got their ass whooped today at home. Yikes. So, yeah, my picks went really bad, but I salvaged a little bit of it tonight with this win. I needed this one bad. Get the one on Monday, and I think I might get to 10 wins. And if I get to 10, I'm okay with that. I knew I went out on a limb on a couple of games, and I knew this was very possible. As long as I get to 10, I'll feel good. I needed this one tonight to salvage what was a really disappointing week. But I think I was able to do that after a rough 4 o'clock afternoon slate of games. Lost the Oakland game, lost the Jacksonville game, lost the Patriots game. But I was able to bounce back tonight, and I feel good about that. Let's see. Garrick Buckmaster says, I don't know if they'll get in, but this is a scary team if they sneak in. They're still really talented. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I said. If they could play this brand of football, they're more of a threat to teams in the playoffs than the Minnesota Vikings are. I do not trust the Minnesota Vikings at all whatsoever. So, if the Rams can get in, they're more dangerous to the elites in the NFC than the Minnesota Vikings are. So, absolutely. I agree with that. Captain Spartan 04 says, next week the whole NFL gets to see that duck. Bart Scott. Can't wait, he says. Quack, quack, man. I told you, this Steelers team would have been a lot further along had they started Duck Hodges a long time ago. He should have been in. Mason Rudolph stinks. And I said that a long time ago. He stinks. Duck Hodges should be starting. They figured it out. And now all of a sudden, the Steelers, don't look now. They're 8-5. And can we already give Mike Tomlin Coach of the Year already? Can we just go ahead and hand him that trophy? Like, that's already been decided, right? Like, we don't have to actually have a debate about that. We've already wrapped up Coach of the Year for him, correct? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Niners fan says, I know you're against the 18-game season, but I think that extra bye week could be useful, especially for my Niners who are extremely banged up and had our bye week in week 4. Yeah, I'm good. I hate the fact that teams get such an early bye, but at the end of the day, I would prefer to not have that extra bye week. But it sounds like they're pretty adamant on going to that 18-game schedule. It won't happen until the new CBA. If it does happen, I'm not looking forward to it at all, but I do understand where you're coming from. But, I mean, it's been like this for years. You take your bye wherever it falls, and you just got to play ball. I mean, it is what it is, bottom line. JP says, before I talk about this game, can't come up here without saying how happy I am for my LSU Tigers making it to the CFB playoffs for the very first time. Congratulations to your LSU Tigers. Reese says, your boy Drew Lock looks for real, Lou. He tore the Texans a new one. It's early. As I always tell you with these quarterbacks and these young players, I'm not going to overreact to what I see. But I knew what I saw on tape with Drew Lock. But that being said, it's only 2 starts, Ryan Leaf won his first 2 starts of his NFL career. All right, now he didn't look as good as Drew Lock looked in his first 2 starts, but nonetheless, he won his first 2 starts. Then he was awful from that point forward. So I'm not going to go goo-goo gaga over Drew Lock, but, if he continues to play this way, and remember, Baker Mayfield looked awesome last year. Baker Mayfield has looked like trash this season. Whether he's injured or not, he hasn't looked good. He didn't look good today, but they won. I'm going to reserve judgment on Drew Lock, but you know how I feel about Drew Lock. JP says, as for this game, I was disappointed in Seattle's offense and not being able to make plays they usually make. And I didn't see Russell Wilson escape the pocket as much as he usually does. That's because he always struggles to escape the pocket against this Rams team. As I mentioned, since he's come into the league, there's always been one team that has given him fits because of their team speed on defense, and it's this Rams football team. Nothing has changed. They still have team speed defensively with Corey Littleton and DFJ and Aaron Donald and all the athletes that they have on the defensive side of the football, and they always give him fits. They did again tonight. It's nothing new. Reese says, 3 in a row. This team is growing up right before our eyes. Last year, Bucks get blown out by that Colts team. We refused to quit and got the dub. 4 out of our last 5. Hashtag BA is BA. And I told you that this team was going to get better as the season wore on under BA. He's a good head coach. My problem is I don't know how long you're going to have BA for. And as I talked about on the podcast, what do you do with Jameis Winston after the season's over? Because if Jameis isn't on this roster next season, and yes, you have to take the bad with the good with Jameis. However, if you don't have Jameis on the roster this upcoming next season, you're starting all over with whomever comes in. You're not going to be very good next season. So there's the kind of between a rock and a hard place decision that the Bucks have to make this offseason on Jameis Winston. And I told you what my solution would be on the podcast. JP says, the best part of waking up, the Rams Cooper Cup. JP says, you think Gurley will have knee surgery this offseason, and how much has the arthritis affected his play? I don't know if you have surgery unless you need it. I don't know if he needs surgery. You know, if you got arthritis, no surgery is going to correct that. You have arthritis. You have arthritis. It's just something you got to deal with. And so I don't know how bad it is. You know, we've heard about the arthritic knee. You know, they said that Gurley was at maximum speed at practice this week. He looked good in the game to me. Saw the hellacious stiff arm that he put on the corner. I want to say it was Trey Flowers that caught that vicious, flavor delicious, poetic scripture stiff arm as he jaunted into the end zone. He looked good to me tonight. I don't know about you. He looked good to me. JP says, I'd much rather see the Eagles win the NFC East and make the playoffs than the Cowboys. Really, I'd rather see neither of those teams make the playoffs. Both of them stink. Equally as bad. 20th Mike says, so does this mean the Seahawks have to play at Dallas? Shaking my head, that's going to be a trap game. I could see that from a mile away. We'll see. You know, if the playoffs started today, yes, that would be the matchup. 4-5 matchup. Cowboys would be at home playing the Seattle Seahawks. Excuse me. It'd be a rematch of the wild card game from last year. You know, Seahawks had to go to Dallas last year. This is a much better Seattle Seahawks team than the one last year that the Cowboys faced. But the Cowboys are capable of beating the Seattle Seahawks. As you mentioned, that could be a trap game. Atlanta Fan 21 says, Rams were good tonight, but if we're being real, Seattle is way overrated and the biggest pretender in the NFC, maybe the NFL. I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree with that statement because all Russell Wilson does is win, 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 no matter what. And so when you got a guy that finds a way to win the way Russell Wilson does, I can't call him nor his team a pretender. I just can't do it. So if you want a pretender in the NFC, you look at the team they beat last week as the team that I think is pretending. I still think they're a joke. I'm still laughing at the Minnesota Vikings. So that's the team that I think is pretending. They could prove me wrong, but that's the team I think is pretending. Really, the entire NFC North is a pretender to me. All those dudes are jokes. Green Bay's not serious. Neither is Minnesota. I can see both of those teams, if they make the postseason, getting eliminated in their very first game. Captain Spartan 04 says that the Rams' offensive line isn't great, but they do have many solid players on it that is noteworthy. Pun intended, note boom, Whitworth. He said note boom versus Whitworth. You and Reese should tag team together. Let's see. Kyle Little says, you think Cooks will be getting traded in the offseason? $16 million a year, not as productive, and too many concussions. And I believe, and he says, and too many concussions, and I believe they really need a bigger receiver. You know what's crazy about Brandon Cooks? It's funny that you bring that up. Is I could never quite put my finger on why nobody wanted him. Like, he was everybody's stepchild. He was just getting passed around from home to home. And I'm like, why doesn't anybody love Brandon Cooks? He had a 1,000-yard season. His first 2 years were 1,000-yard seasons in New Orleans. They trade him to New England. He has a 1,000-yard season for Brady and the Patriots. They trade him. And he comes to the Rams, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? He has 1,000 yards there. And they were talking about, are the Rams going to move Brandon Cooks? And they locked him up finally. And I'm like, why doesn't anybody love Brandon Cooks? Maybe this is why. The concussions are one thing, but more importantly, Brandon Cooks is one of those guys that he can go 5 for $130 and 2 touches, or he can go 2 catches for 7 yards. Those are the guys that scare you in this league because those are guys that you really don't rely on heavily. You want guys like Michael Thomas or, guys that are high volume. You can throw it to them, or Nuke. Those are the kind of receivers, or Julio Jones. You throw it to them, 11 times. They're going to catch 7 of them for 78 yards. That's like the floor most weeks, that they're going to show up. Now, unlike Julio Jones, who doesn't ever get in the end zone, you would like your big play receiver to get you touchdowns as well. And Cooks just hasn't been very productive. But again, he's had injuries to blame for that this season. I don't know. Who's going to want to take that number with those concussions and all of that off of their hands? I don't know of many teams that are looking for an oft-hurt $16 million price tag wide receiver in the offseason. So, I don't know. I don't think anybody would trade for that contract. Reese says, I don't know if you saw it, but Mike Evans injured his hamstring on a 61-yard touchdown. I've never seen Mike Evans run that fast. Yeah, I didn't see it, but I heard about it. That's why I thought the Colts had a great chance to win. I said, he's out. Then Jameis was out at halftime, and I'm thinking, there's no way they should lose this game. They were up double digits, and they still found a way to piss it away. I've got to watch it and see what actually happened. Niners fan says, did you see that egregious face mask by Marcus Williams that nearly tore Kittle's neck off? No, I didn't see it. I saw a still shot photo of it. I didn't actually see the play. Reese says, it just wasn't Seattle's day. You win some, you lose some. Some things just don't break your way. They'll still be in the playoffs. Absolutely. JP says, I agree that Ramsey has done well since he got to the Rams. I do think getting another corner this offseason would do them some good, though. Troy Hill actually hasn't been that bad. I'm not saying that he's the long-term solution at the opposite corner, but Troy Hill hasn't been that bad. JP says, plenty of teams got sent to the couch of misery today. If you ask me, Doug Marrone will be fired from Jacksonville before the season is over. At this point of the season, unless you're hell-bent on getting the process started early, don't understand the basis behind firing your coach with 3 games left in the season. Now, I can tell you this much. The Jags have absolutely tuned out and quit on Doug Marrone. You get your ass pasted at the crib like that, and your team is officially quit on you. So, yeah. Garrick Buckmaster says, do you think the Seahawks O-line is good enough? We've seen them struggle against better pass rushing defenses. No, I don't. That's why they have to be able to run the football, which is why they have to get out to a lead so they can allow their offensive line to do what they're made to do and what they do best, which is run block. Because if they fall behind and they got to throw it and teams know they have to throw it, now they can get after Russell Wilson, and that's not what they do. We saw it against San Francisco. We saw it in this game. We've seen it throughout the course of this season. When they've gotten behind, they have been in trouble and exposed. They can't play from behind consistently because their offensive line cannot hold up against teams that can get after the quarterback. So they have to be able to run the football. That's why getting out to a lead, or at least staying close enough where the run game is still in play, is imperative for the Seattle Seahawks. Reese says, the 49ers Saints game, Lou, Bedlam. Bedlam, I tell you, pure mayhem. I cannot wait to watch that football game. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to watch it right after I'm done with this. JP says, I'm watching Dante Fowler Jr. dominate for the Rams, and I really wish the Skins got him last year at the deadline. Even if they had, who's to say he would have signed with the Redskins in the offseason? You know, remember, he was on the last year of his deal. He elected to stay in Los Angeles on a one-year deal. Why? Because they made it to the Super Bowl, and he wanted to see if they could get back to the Super Bowl again this season. And now he's going to cash in the offseason next year, or this upcoming offseason, and he may stay in L.A. He may not. But bottom line is, I don't think he would have wanted to be back in Washington with the dysfunction in that organization. He probably would have left in the offseason anyway. So I wanted the Redskins to go for him too, but he probably wouldn't have stayed in Washington anyway. JP says, funny thing about the Bears is that the Bears fan, Michael Wilbon of ESPN, has hated Matt Nagy all year long. Is Nagy that bad, or is Mike just a cranky old man screaming, get off my lawn? Look, I'm not the biggest Matt Nagy fan. I told you, the way he addressed the media and the way he carried himself during that stretch where they were struggling, where he pretty much told the media, how dare you question me? I'm Matt Nagy. I won the division last year. You know, put some respect on my name. When he was doing some tomfoolery. I mean, he was doing some bullshit that was costing his team, and he didn't want to be accountable for it. That, my friends, is how you lose your locker room. When you don't take accountability for what you're doing wrong, that's a problem. But he found a way to navigate his way. And to me, I gave him a pass because that was the first time he saw adversity as a head coach. Not everybody is able to just take that adversity in stride like Sean McVay did and able to bounce back. Some people actually have to go through that adversity, have the shit hit the fan, have it hit them in the face, wipe it off their face, wash their face clean, and then say, all right, I don't want that to happen again. How can I be better moving forward? That's what happened to Matt Nagy. All right. So I think he's adjusted well, and I think he may be better off as a head coach moving forward because of that adversity and some of the backlash that came with it. I think he'll be a better guy in the future so that when that adversity hits, maybe he'll deal with it a little bit better the next time around. JP says, with the holidays right around the corner, did you set up your Christmas tree? Yeah, I talked about that on my podcast. Absolutely. And I have an artificial tree. Bob Money says, does this mean we won the Jimmy G trade? If it did, does that mean we took Bill Belichick's future? Win the trade? I'd say, yeah. I mean, you got you a starting quarterback for a second-round pick. I'd say that's pretty damn good. You know, most teams aren't able to trade for their quarterback of the future. Most of them aren't getting him for a second-round pick. And most people don't win trades with the New England Patriots. Most teams don't. You usually get fleeced by the Patriots in a trade. So, yeah. And, yes, you took Bill Belichick's future. That's why Belichick didn't want to trade him, and that's why he wanted to sign Jimmy G to a long-term contract, and Jimmy G didn't want to sign there because he couldn't be guaranteed of when Tom Brady would hang it up. And had he signed that deal with New England, and had they not traded him, he'd still be on the bench to this day. So I'd say you won that trade, and I'd say you took Belichick's future because they still haven't found the quarterback of the future. They're still looking for that guy in New England. I think they would have moved on from Tom Brady maybe a year ago if a guy like Jimmy G was around. I mean, there are a lot of reports out that Belichick was ready to move on from Brady 2-3 years ago. And if they had a Jimmy G locked up on the contract, I think that might have actually come to fruition if Belichick would have had his way. Now, remember that Belichick doesn't run the squad. Robert Kraft does have a say-so, and he loves Tom Brady and swears by him. So that was the rift in New England when all of that was going down. And remember, we didn't know how much longer the B&B Winning Factory was going to be together because there was so much going on behind the scenes that they traded Jimmy G, and I think a lot of that kind of calmed down because Jimmy G was the basis for a lot of what was going on because, you know, Bill was like, hey, I'm ready to move on with this guy. He's the future. And Kraft was like, yo, we still got more years of Tom Brady and winning. Like, what are you doing? No, we're not doing that. So, yeah, I think you won the trade. I said all of that to say this. I think you won the trade. Reese says, what's wrong with the Vikings, Lou? I thought Kirk was your guy. Kirk is my guy. Nothing wrong with the Vikings. I mean, I just don't believe in the Vikings. I don't believe in them. I don't love their defense. All right. And I don't love their offense when they're not. I don't love their offense when they're behind. Similar to Seattle, they need to play with a lead. Now, we've seen them come back like they did against Denver, but Denver is a 5-8 ball club. So, they're a team that I wonder about as well. And I've talked about all my concerns with them. I did it on Monday, so I'm not going to rehash that here. Gregory Lightbody says, you heard that teams don't want any NFC East teams in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what they want. It's going to happen. I don't want any NFC East teams in the playoffs. It's ridiculous. JP says, did you hear that OBJ reportedly wants out of Cleveland after just one season with the team? I did. I honestly could care less, to be honest with you. Cleveland's a mess. That whole situation, they talked about them mismanaging his sports hernia and that he needs surgery and he should have had it this offseason. It's a mess in Cleveland. Reese says, if BA turns this ship around and puts us on a winning track, I'm okay with him only being here for a brief time. We'll see. Reese says, I respectfully disagree, Lou. If someone else is slinging the rock next year, I think we would be a better team. We have elite pass catchers. Sure you do. But just because you have elite pass catchers doesn't mean you can insert. So would you have won the game today if Ryan Griffin would have been in for the remainder of the game? So you could just insert Ryan Griffin as your starting quarterback and you're going to just keep rolling because you got great pass catchers? I disagree with that. JP says, I asked about Todd Gurley's health because he is vital to the Rams' success, and it would be a crushing blow for the Rams and the league if he decided to retire early. It wouldn't be a crushing blow to the league, but the Rams would have to then find the next guy. And they think D'Angelo Henderson is a quality running back. They would have to find that out sooner rather than later. Derek B says, this was NFC West family business. The Rams always play the Seahawks tough, even when they were trash with Fisher. Sleep on Russell Wilson at your peril. As I said, and he pretty much echoed everything I just said. Even when they weren't very good, back in 2012, the Jeff Fisher days, they always gave Russell Wilson fits. That's always been their MO. So this is, like he just said, and I said it earlier, this is family business. So don't overreact to what you saw tonight. YBNRV says, do you think Redskins would take wide receiver Brandon Cooks? I'm sure they would, but I wouldn't want him, and that hasn't been the Redskins' MO of late, taking aging veterans. Generally, they go after young guys that are going into the prime of their career. So I don't think Cooks would be that guy. They're not trading for Brandon Cooks and his $16 million cap number anyway. Let's see. YBNRV says, what do you think the Rams' plan will be after this season? No first-round pick for the next 2 years. How do you think they plan to rebuild? I see them, just continuing to stay the course. They're not going to do anything like they have the last couple of off seasons. They're going to pretty much be status quo in the off season. You may see a move here or there. They're going to look to lock up Jalen Ramsey. That'll be one of their top priorities. But I don't expect them to do anything rash. It'd be interesting to see if they decide to try to move on from Brandon Cooks. But similar to the offseason that they just had where they let a couple of veterans go like an Ndamukong Suh, they're going to probably do the same thing in this offseason. A couple of aging veterans. I think this might be the last year for Andrew Whitworth. So they may have to look to try to, fill that void, whether they have a guy in-house that they think can do that or they have to draft someone in the upcoming draft. But that's something I look for them to address is the tackle position. So, and I told you I didn't love the tackle that they drafted in the third round last year. So we'll see what happens. JP says, did you see the Patriots fans? Yep, I saw that. I can't believe they're so spoiled, are the Patriots fans, booing the 10-2 Patriots off the field at halftime. They're spoiled. They haven't lost a game in 3 seasons at home. what is it, 27-game win streak at the crib? And you're booing? Like, they're spoiled. They're brats. I just can't with them. Xavier Lester says, do you feel like the Titans are becoming Super Bowl contenders? That's a little strong. Are the Titans becoming a team you have to pay attention to in the AFC? Absolutely. Super Bowl contenders, I wouldn't go that far. Captain Spartan 04 says, do you like eggnog and also chocolate chip cookies or those mini sugar cookies? I'll drink eggnog. I haven't drunk eggnog in a long time. I'm a vegan, so I haven't checked for vegan eggnog because I didn't love it enough to go out of my way to find a vegan option there. But I had no problems with eggnog back in my non-vegan days. And chocolate, I've never been really a big chocolate chip cookie guy. Sugar cookies are fine. I'm more of an oatmeal raisin cookie guy myself. You know, macadamia nut. Sign me up for macadamia nut or oatmeal raisin. Chocolate chip, you can have them. I'm good. Atlanta Fan 21 says, sorry if you've talked about this already, but how do you feel about the 2019 NFC East having a historically bad win-loss record this season? As my man B3 just said, I talk about everything on my podcast. I talked about that on the podcast, so I don't need to address that here. But you get where I'm coming from. I called him D'Angelo. I always call him D'Angelo Henderson. Daryl Henderson. Thank you. Always call that man D'Angelo Henderson. Always. Reese says, well, Lou, don't think any decent quarterback could have a great season with these weapons. Our only problem is how much we turn the ball over. He said, well, don't you think any decent quarterback? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Just because you have great weapons doesn't mean you're going to get great results. Like, that's a misnomer in this league, is that, I can just insert X quarterback into this system and they should just thrive and prosper. It's not always the case. It takes a special quarterback to be able to do the things that Jameis does. There's elite talent there. Now, you're going to, again, there are a ton of turnovers and mistakes. But Jameis already set a Buccaneers record for most passing yards in a season, and he's still got 3 games remaining to just shatter that record and put it out of reach for the next guy. And so, there's a ton of turnovers with Jameis. I talked about that on the podcast. But there's a ton of upside too. But I get it. If you want to move on from him, I totally get it. There are too many turnovers. And at some point, you have to draw a line. I get it. JP says, funny you mentioned the Vikings because if they were to lose early in the playoffs, they could potentially move on from Mike Zimmer. Anything's on the table there. Kyle Little says, Wilson is 7-9 versus the Rams. Ouch. I said this. This is what I do. I'm a professional football watcher. I know what he's done in his career. That might be the only team in the division he has a losing record versus. Gregory Lightbody says, where do I find your podcast and what have you talked about on it lately? Everything. Podcast is available anywhere you get a podcast. It's on Google Music Play. It's on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. You can get it on the website, louietnetwork.net as well. No excuses. It's everywhere. Reese says, top 5 Christmas movies ever. Go. That's a podcast type of discussion. Captain Spartan 04 says, Louisville bias. I still hate Anthony Davis unibrow. I want it shaved so bad. Okay. Mel W says, how do you feel about the Redskins pursuing Mariota as a backup quarterback once Tennessee releases him? If I'm Marcus Mariota, I want to go somewhere where I can start. Washington is not somewhere where I can start right away. There will be opportunities in other locations where he may be able to start. So if I'm Marcus Mariota, I'm trying to go somewhere like L.A. to the Chargers. I wouldn't go somewhere like that where I got a chance to compete to start potentially. I don't want to go to the Washington Redskins. They have a young quarterback in place. I don't know if he's any good yet and if he's the long-term solution, but that's a guy that they're trying to grow with. Why would you want to go and find yourself in a position where you may not get on the field? think he's good enough to find an opportunity where he may be able to get on the field right away. So JP says, Pats fans are indeed spoiled brats. They're like Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka. JP says, oh, okay, talking basketball. YBNRV says, Lou, thanks for reading my comment, man. I love your work and the videos you make. I watch you every time you post, bruh. Please keep making videos, LOL. For real, for real. Love your content. Thank you for all the support that you've given me. And thank all of you for watching and all the support that you give me. I really appreciate you guys just as much as you appreciate me and my content. Can't thank you guys enough. Derek B says, Lou, I came in late, didn't hear your opening comments. Should have known you wouldn't have dismissed the Seahawks after this loss. Obviously, we on the same page for the most part, Derek B. You know, there are a couple of times that you may go off the rails a bit and me and you may not see eye to eye, but for the most part, we generally here, man. Derek B says, is Die Hard Christmas movie? I'd say yes. I don't know. I don't know if that's considered a Christmas movie or not. There's a couple that you is Friday After Next considered a Christmas movie? I don't know. I mean, it was made around Christmas time and had a Christmas theme. Is that a Christmas movie? I don't know. Anyway, Gregory Lightbody says Skins should have drafted Drew Lock, but then they wouldn't have Terry. They could have drafted both of those guys, actually. So, you know. But anyway, Atlanta Fan 21 says, who are your top 3 head coaching candidates this season? You know what's crazy is a lot of these college guys are getting a lot of attention. Lincoln Riley. I still would stay away from Urban Meyer, but Herb seems to be on a lot of people's radars. I heard David Shaw's name again. We hear his name every year from Stanford. The offensive coordinator at LSU is starting to get a little bit of love as well after the season that Joe Burrow and that offense has turned in. I think Ron Rivera kind of goes straight to the top of that list now. I believe he's going to get work. It's Josh McDaniels. There are going to be a number of guys that, are going to potentially get opportunities again. Are they willing to take them? We'll see. We'll see. Reese says, I know I was Winston's biggest fan, Lou, and a part of me still is. It just comes down to the fact that we can't shake this turnover bug. I want more than anything for him to be the guy. I know you do. You've always been in his corner. You've been a supporter. I get it, man. I totally get it. I know where you're coming from. The turnovers are too much to bear. And for all the talent that he possesses and all of the abilities that he has, the turnovers are just a problem. They are. They really are. I get it. Anyway, Captain Spartan 04 says, that Seahawks offense is a luxury. Pisses me off. They already moved on from Gary Jennings. Something must have went totally awry there that he got released as soon as he did. HTTR for Life says, did you catch that Bills game? Lamar still looking unstoppable, and I see him being in the Super Bowl this year. I did watch that game. YBNRV says, what's the Rams' game plan for taking on big power teams in the playoffs? Saints are different. Packers, we didn't play, etc. Again, this is what they have to be moving forward. They have to be this offense, the offense of last year. Moving parts, shifts, misdirection, running the football, play action fake, getting Goff out of the pocket. We saw Goff's numbers outside of the pocket tonight. He was flawless outside of the pocket tonight. All right? They have to have the jet sweeps. They have to have the ghost motion. They have to have all of these things. This is what makes the Rams who they are. So that's going to do it for Sunday Night Football overtime. Seahawks fall to the Los Angeles Rams in this game 28-12. Dominant performance by the Rams all the way around. Dominant first half. And they pretty much coasted in the second half of this game after jumping out to a 21-3 lead at the halftime break. Goff was outstanding in the first half, cooled off a bit in the second half, but the damage was done. Dominant performance by this defense, holding Russell Wilson and what was a high-octane Seahawks offense to just 6 points really on the evening, as a pick six accounted for the other score in this game. So really dominant performance by this Rams defense and a really strong first half by this Rams offense. Gurley was solid. Goff was really good for much of this game, and it was a good win for a Rams team that is making a late season push to try to make it into the postseason, as they now improve to 8-5 on the season and are making things interesting in the NFC wildcard picture. Meanwhile, for the Seahawks, they lose a piece of first place, drop into second, and now fall from the number 2 seed in the NFC conference to now the number 5 seed, as they now are a game back of first place in the NFC West behind the 11-2 San Francisco 49ers, as they leave this game at 10-3. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content if you haven't already done so. Check out the podcast, Louie T Network Podcast, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, and of course, the website, louietnetwork.net. I'm out of here. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I've got a lot of football to watch. Some really good contests took place today. I got to see what the hell is going on out there. I'm your man, Louie T. I'll see you guys next time. Join me tomorrow for Rep Your Squad. We'll do that tomorrow. So I'll see you guys then. Have a good one. Take care. Thanks again for joining me tonight.
Louie T Network.